In life, we are often confronted by two formidable adversaries, self-doubt and fear. They stand at the gate of every meaningful endeavor, whispering falsehoods and attempting to undermine our confidence. But the Stoic mind, grounded in wisdom and guided by reason, sees these foes for what they truly are: temporary illusions that cannot withstand the scrutiny of rational thought. We are not powerless against them. The Stoic philosophy, which has stood the test of time, offers us a path to rise above these emotions. By mastering our inner world, we hold the key to peace, clarity, and strength. The Stoic mindset, when applied to overcoming self-doubt and fear, is not just a tool, it is the very foundation upon which we can build a life of virtue, resilience, and unshakable confidence. Today, we will explore how to cultivate this mindset and, in doing so, how to break free from the chains of uncertainty that hold us back from our true potential. Let us begin. The power of the Stoic mindset. The power of the Stoic mindset is not an abstract concept, but a practical force that, when embraced fully, transforms every aspect of our lives. It is the belief that we can shape our inner world, regardless of the chaos or uncertainty that surrounds us. The Stoic mind does not surrender to external circumstances. Instead, it remains steadfast, grounded in reason and virtue. This is not a passive existence, but an active mastery of self. The Stoic teaches us that we are the masters of our own thoughts, emotions, and actions, and in doing so we cultivate an unshakable tranquility that defies the turbulence of the world. When faced with self-doubt or fear, the Stoic mindset asks us to turn inward, to look not at the external world but at the power we possess within ourselves. It is easy to become consumed by what we cannot control: the opinions of others, the unpredictability of the future, or the outcomes of our efforts. But the Stoic knows that these are not the sources of true power. True power lies in our response to them. We cannot control the waves of life, but we can learn how to sail through them with strength and grace. The first step in adopting the Stoic mindset is to recognize the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. This is the foundation upon which all Stoic practice is built. The external world, with its trials and tribulations, is beyond our control. We cannot command the weather, dictate the actions of others, or predict the future with certainty. These are the things that often fuel our fear and self-doubt. But the Stoic reminds us that it is not the world itself that causes us distress, but our reactions to it. Our judgments about what happens to us, our attachment to outcomes, and our tendency to fear the unknown are the true sources of our suffering. The Stoic does not seek to avoid fear or doubt. These are natural emotions arising from our human nature, and they are not to be condemned. Instead, the Stoic mindset teaches us how to respond to them. When fear arises, we are to meet it with the understanding that it is a reaction to something we cannot control. It is not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity to exercise our strength. The Stoic does not fear fear itself, for it knows that it is temporary and that it does not define us. It is simply a passing storm that will, in time, subside. In the face of self-doubt, the Stoic also remains resolute. It is easy to question our abilities, especially when we face challenges or when others doubt us. But the Stoic knows that the only judgment that matters is the one we pass on ourselves. Self-doubt arises when we place too much value on external validation or when we lose sight of our own virtues. The Stoic teaches us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our intentions, and our capacity for growth. We are not defined by our failures, but by our response to them. Each failure is not an end, but a lesson that shapes us into better versions of ourselves. The Stoic mind embraces failure as an essential part of life's journey, not as a reflection of its worth. Furthermore, the Stoic mindset demands that we confront discomfort with courage. It is in the crucible of discomfort that we discover our true strength. Fear and self-doubt often arise when we step outside our comfort zone, when we attempt something new, or when we are faced with uncertainty. The Stoic, however, does not retreat from these moments. It welcomes them. It understands that growth and transformation come not in the absence of discomfort, but through the ability to remain calm and deliberate in the face of it. It is only by embracing discomfort that we cultivate resilience, the ability to endure, adapt, and rise above whatever life throws our way. A key component of the Stoic mindset is also the practice of mental discipline. It is not enough to simply acknowledge fear or doubt. We must train our minds to respond to them with reason and clarity. The Stoic does not let emotions dictate its actions. Instead, it subjects all thoughts and reactions to the scrutiny of reason. In every moment of fear or doubt, we ask ourselves, what is true here? What is within my control? What can I do to respond with virtue? By consistently applying these questions, we begin to shape our mind in a way that is aligned with our values, not with the whims of fleeting emotions. It is also important to remember that the Stoic mindset is not something we attain overnight. It is a continual practice, an ongoing cultivation of wisdom and virtue. It requires patience, perseverance, and a commitment to self-improvement. We will inevitably face moments of fear and self-doubt, but the Stoic knows that these are not obstacles but opportunities. Every time we face fear with courage, every time we silence the voice of self-doubt with reason, we grow stronger. This is the true power of the Stoic mindset, its ability to transform us from within, to help us rise above our fears and doubts, and to lead a life of purpose, clarity, and inner peace. In conclusion, the Stoic mindset offers us a powerful way to navigate the storms of self-doubt and fear. By recognizing what is within our control, by responding to challenges with courage and reason, and by embracing discomfort as an opportunity for growth, we can cultivate an unshakable inner strength. This is not a strength born of external circumstances, but a strength that arises from within, a strength that is grounded in virtue, wisdom, and resilience. With the Stoic mindset, we are not at the mercy of our fears and doubts, we are their masters. Understanding self-doubt and fear. Self-doubt and fear are not mere inconveniences, they are the two most potent forces that hold us back from fulfilling our potential. They whisper in our minds, telling us we are not enough, that we are incapable, that the challenges we face are beyond our reach. But what if I told you that these emotions, though powerful, are nothing more than illusions? In the realm of Stoic thought, we understand that these emotions are not signs of weakness, nor are they inevitable truths. Rather, they are reactions to our own judgments, judgments that can be reshaped through careful reflection, rational thinking, and the practice of virtue. To truly understand self-doubt and fear is to take the first step in overcoming them. Self-doubt often arises from our own uncertainty about our abilities. It is the voice that questions whether we are capable of achieving our goals, whether we are worthy of success, and whether our efforts will amount to anything meaningful. It is a deeply human experience, one that most of us have encountered at some point in our lives. But here is where the Stoic mindset stands in opposition to common belief. Stoicism teaches us that self-doubt is not the result of our own inadequacies, but of our attachment to external validation. When we seek approval or recognition from others, when we allow external outcomes to define our worth, we place our confidence in things that are beyond our control. The Stoic rejects this. It teaches us to find our sense of worth not in the praise or condemnation of others, but in our own virtuous actions. Consider the Stoic teaching of Epictetus, who said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Self-doubt, then, is not a reflection of our capabilities, but of our reactions to perceived failures or the judgments of others. We are not born with self-doubt, it is cultivated by our thoughts, by our beliefs about what success or failure means, and by our expectations of how others should perceive us. In truth, self-doubt often arises when we forget that our value is not tied to external accomplishments. It is tied to our virtue, our ability to respond with wisdom, courage, and integrity to whatever life places in our path. Fear, on the other hand, is often seen as the enemy of progress. It is the sensation that grips us when we face the unknown, when we stand on the edge of uncertainty, or when we are required to make a decision that may have consequences we cannot predict. Fear rises when we perceive a threat, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, and it activates a deep, primal response within us. Fear, when unchecked, can paralyze us, leading us to avoid action, to stay in our comfort zones, and to reject opportunities for growth. Yet fear itself is not inherently negative. It is a natural response to potential danger, a survival mechanism that has been with us since the dawn of humanity. The Stoic view of fear is not to deny its existence or try to suppress it, but to understand it for what it truly is: a reaction to what we believe might harm us, and, more importantly, a reaction to what we cannot control. The Stoic, then, does not seek to avoid fear, but to examine it rationally. Fear often stems from our attachment to outcomes: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection. These are all outcomes that are beyond our control. What we can control, however, is our response to these fears. The Stoic mindset teaches us that fear diminishes when we focus on what is within our control: our thoughts, our actions, and our ability to endure whatever challenges may come. The fear of failure, for example, is rooted in the belief that failure will define us, that it will tarnish our worth. But the Stoic understands that failure is not a judgment of character, but a part of the learning process. It is a temporary setback, not a permanent state. When we embrace fear as an opportunity for growth, we diminish its power over us. Both self-doubt and fear are reactions to the unknown, whether it be our own potential or the outcomes of our actions. The Stoic, however, does not fear the unknown. It accepts it as an inherent part of life. We cannot predict the future, nor can we control the actions of others, but we can control our responses. In fact, this is the heart of Stoic philosophy: to understand that external events are not the source of our suffering, but our judgments about them. When we judge ourselves harshly for not meeting our own or others' expectations, when we fear outcomes that are beyond our control, we bind ourselves to the whims of fate. But when we adopt the Stoic mindset, we free ourselves from these bonds. We recognize that our value is not defined by success or failure, but by how we respond to both. A key to overcoming self-doubt and fear is to recognize that these emotions are often born from an inflated sense of importance we place on ourselves. The Stoic teaches humility, reminding us that we are but a small part of a vast, interconnected world. We do not control the cosmos, nor do we control the actions of others. By acknowledging our own smallness, we diminish the grip of fear and self-doubt. We realize that we are not the center of the universe, and that the world will not collapse if we fail or make mistakes. This sense of perspective is crucial in freeing ourselves from the paralyzing grip of self-doubt. We are not defined by our achievements or by the judgments of others. We are defined by our virtues, our ability to act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance in any given situation. Furthermore, both self-doubt and fear are fueled by anticipation, our tendency to worry about what might happen in the future. We imagine the worst-case scenarios and allow them to dictate our actions. But the Stoic rejects the power of these projections. We cannot know the future, nor can we control it. What we can do, however, is prepare ourselves mentally for any challenges that may arise. By focusing on the present moment, by taking deliberate actions based on our principles and values, we diminish the power of fear and self-doubt. The Stoic reminds us that the present is all we truly have, and that the future will unfold as it will, regardless of our anxieties. Ultimately, understanding self-doubt and fear is the key to overcoming them. They are not permanent obstacles, but temporary reactions to our judgments about the world. By examining these emotions with a Stoic mindset, we learn to separate our true selves from the fleeting judgments that cloud our minds. Self-doubt is not a reflection of our worth, but of our attachment to external validation. Fear is not a sign of weakness, but a natural response to the unknown. By embracing the Stoic principles of control, acceptance, and rational thought, we can free ourselves from the grip of both. We can learn to move through life with courage, confidence, and clarity, knowing that we are the masters of our own thoughts, actions, and destinies. The root cause of self-doubt. To understand self-doubt is to understand the very nature of our thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. Self-doubt is not some external force that descends upon us, nor is it an inevitable trait of our character. It is, instead, a creation of the mind, a product of our judgments and expectations. The Stoic mind, however, does not accept anything at face value. It seeks to uncover the root cause of every emotion, every reaction, and every thought. By examining the true source of self-doubt, we can strip it of its power and expose it for what it truly is, a misunderstanding of our own nature and a misguided attachment to outcomes. At the heart of self-doubt lies a fundamental belief that we are defined by our success, our achievements, and the validation we receive from others. We look to the external world to validate our worth, to affirm that we are competent, capable, and worthy of love and respect. This dependence on external affirmation creates a fragile sense of self, one that is easily shaken by failure, rejection, or criticism. But this is where the Stoic philosophy offers its most profound insight. It teaches us that our worth is not defined by external accomplishments or the opinions of others. Our worth is rooted in our own virtue, in our ability to act with wisdom, courage, and integrity, regardless of the outcome. Self-doubt arises when we tie our self-worth to external circumstances, to the validation of others, or to the desire to achieve certain outcomes. When we set our sights on a specific goal and it does not come to fruition, the mind begins to question, am I not capable? Am I not good enough? This cycle of self-inquiry feeds self-doubt, leading us to believe that our value is contingent upon success. The Stoic teaches us that this is a dangerous belief, for it places our happiness and sense of self-worth outside of our control. We become slaves to external circumstances, forever dependent on what we cannot govern. The Stoic approach to self-doubt begins with the radical shift in perception. We must no longer look outward for validation, but inward. The Stoic mindset is centered on the understanding that our true worth is not based on what happens to us, but on how we choose to respond to what happens. This response is the essence of virtue. Whether we succeed or fail, whether we are praised or criticized, we retain our dignity and worth when we act in accordance with our highest principles. Success is not defined by the external outcomes, but by the quality of our effort. It is our internal actions, our intention, and our adherence to virtue that determine our value, not the fleeting judgments of others or the outcome of our endeavors. This shift in perspective is not an easy one. It requires us to reframe our understanding of self-worth and to confront the deeply ingrained beliefs that have shaped us. From an early age, many of us are taught to seek validation from others, to compete for approval, and to measure our worth by our achievements. These teachings become internalized, and over time they shape our self-concept. When we face setbacks, failure, or rejection, we interpret these experiences as reflections of our inadequacies. We internalize the belief that failure means we are less than, that we are unworthy. But the Stoic rejects this false narrative. The Stoic reminds us that failure is simply an event, not a verdict on our character. It is an opportunity for growth, not a condemnation of our worth. The Stoic also teaches us to embrace the idea of amor fati, the love of fate. This philosophy invites us to accept whatever comes our way, not as a burden to bear, but as an essential part of our journey. When we encounter obstacles or failures, we do not view them as indications of our inadequacy. We see them as necessary steps toward growth and self-improvement. The Stoic does not fear failure, nor does it allow failure to dictate its sense of self. Instead, the Stoic views failure as an opportunity to practice resilience, patience, and humility. We are not defeated by failure, we are defined by how we respond to it. And it is in our responses that we find our true power. A critical factor in the development of self-doubt is the attachment to perfection. We live in a world that often demands perfection, whether in our work, our relationships, or our personal achievements. This pressure to be perfect, to be without flaw, creates an unrealistic standard that sets us up for disappointment. When we inevitably fall short of this unattainable ideal, self-doubt creeps in. But the Stoic teaches us that perfection is not the goal. Virtue is the goal. Perfection is an illusion. It is a standard that no human being can ever fully achieve. The Stoic embraces the idea that imperfection is part of the human condition. We are not expected to be flawless. We are expected to act with integrity, to live with purpose, and to strive for improvement. It is our effort, not our flawless execution, that defines us. This understanding of self-doubt also requires us to examine the role of comparison. One of the most insidious ways in which self-doubt takes root is through comparison with others. We look around us and measure ourselves against the success, achievements, or appearances of others. We believe that we must meet or exceed the standards set by others in order to be worthy. But the Stoic wisdom is clear: we must never compare ourselves to others, for each of us has a unique path to follow. The only true measure of success is how closely we align our actions with our values, not how closely we resemble others. The Stoic teaches that to compare is to rob oneself of peace. We are all on our own journey, and the only comparison that matters is with our past selves. Are we growing, improving, and acting in accordance with our highest ideals? That is the true measure of success. Finally, the Stoic reminds us that self-doubt is a natural part of the human experience. It is not something to be eradicated, but something to be understood. Self-doubt will come. It will always find a way to appear when we venture into unfamiliar territory, when we face uncertainty, or when we seek to improve ourselves. But the Stoic teaches us not to run from self-doubt, but to confront it with clarity and wisdom. When self-doubt arises, we are not to judge ourselves harshly or fall into despair. Instead, we are to examine the thought that lies behind the doubt. Is it rooted in a belief that our worth is defined by success? Is it a result of comparing ourselves to others? Is it based on an unrealistic standard of perfection? By identifying the source of our doubt, we can begin to dismantle it. We can replace false beliefs with the truth that our worth is not defined by success or failure, but by our commitment to virtue and our ability to act with integrity, all circumstances. In conclusion, the root cause of self-doubt lies in our attachment to external validation, our pursuit of perfection, and our tendency to compare ourselves to others. The Stoic mindset offers a radical shift in perspective. Our worth is not dependent on what others think, on the outcomes of our efforts, or on our ability to meet impossible standards. Our worth lies in our virtue, in our capacity to act with wisdom, courage, and integrity, regardless of the circumstances. By understanding and confronting the root cause of self-doubt, we can begin to free ourselves from its grip, and in doing so, step into a life of true strength, peace, and confidence. The role of external validation. External validation is an invisible force that can either propel us forward or hold us back, depending on how much we depend on. In the world around us, we are constantly surrounded by opinions, whether they come from family, colleagues, or society at large. These opinions often shape our sense of self, fueling our desires, determining our goals, and at times dictating our actions. However, the Stoic mindset teaches us to question this dependence on external validation. For the Stoic, the approval or disapproval of others does not define the worthy person. It is not the praise of others that shapes our character, but our own actions, thoughts, and thought. In a world that often measures success by the accolades one receives or the recognition one attains, it is easy to become attached to external validation. When we are praised for our achievements, our confidence soars. When we are criticized, our sense of self diminishes. This constant ebb and flow of approval and disapproval creates a fragile foundation for our self-worth. When our value is based on what others think of us, we become vulnerable to the shifting winds of fortune. The Stoic teaches us that true inner strength comes not from the applause of the crowd, but from the steadfast adherence to our own principles, regardless of how others perceive us. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, reminded us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This wisdom speaks to the heart of the Stoic approach to external validation. The Stoic knows that the only thing within our control is how we respond to external circumstances, not what others say about us, nor the outcomes of our actions. When we seek validation from others, we allow ourselves to become subject to their judgments, which are often based on their own biases, perceptions, and misunderstandings. We place our self-worth in their hands, and this leaves us at the mercy of others. The Stoic refuses to surrender control of their own value to anyone but themselves. External validation also distorts our understanding of success. If we are constantly measuring our worth by external standards, we can never truly know what success means for us. Success becomes about meeting the expectations of others, rather than fulfilling our own sense of purpose and striving toward the virtuous life. The Stoic knows that success is not about pleasing others or achieving external markers of accomplishment. It is about living in harmony with virtue, maintaining inner peace, and acting with integrity, regardless of external recognition. This does not mean that the Stoic rejects praise or acknowledgement. It simply means that praise and acknowledgement are not the defining factors of their worth. The Stoic seeks approval from within, not from the world outside. This distinction between internal and external validation is crucial for overcoming self-doubt and fear. When we depend on the validation of others to feel good about ourselves, we are constantly at the mercy of their opinions. We can never be certain when we will receive praise, nor can we control when others will criticize us. We may spend our lives chasing after validation, only to find that it is elusive and fleeting. On the other hand, when we seek validation from within, when we root our sense of self in our actions and adherence to virtue, we become unshaken by the opinions of others. The Stoic asks, why should we place our happiness in the hands of those who do not see the full measure of our character? Why should we allow their fleeting judgments to shape the way we view ourselves? It is also important to recognize that external validation is often based on superficial factors: appearance, status, wealth, or popularity. These are not measures of true virtue, nor are they reliable indicators of a person's character. The Stoic understands that true excellence is found in the cultivation of inner virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These are the qualities that form the foundation of a fulfilled and meaningful life. To place our worth in the hands of others, who often judge based on surface-level traits, is to deny ourselves the opportunity to live according to the highest standards of human excellence. The Stoic does not seek to isolate themselves from others or to reject all forms of social connection. In fact, Stoics value relationships and community, but they do so without allowing those relationships to define their worth. They engage with the world and contribute to society, but they do not measure their value based on the approval or disapproval of others. The Stoic mindset allows us to engage with the world fully, to pursue goals with passion, and to contribute to the common good, without losing sight of the fact that our true worth lies in our inner virtues, not in external accolades. It is also essential to understand that external validation can be a source of distraction. When we are constantly focused on seeking approval from others, we divert our attention away from our true purpose. The Stoic teaches us to focus on what is important: our own growth, our commitment to virtue, and our ability to live a life of integrity. When we make our decisions based on what others think, we lose touch with our authentic selves. The Stoic wisdom reminds us that we must look inward, examining our own thoughts, actions, and intentions, rather than outwardly to the praise or criticism of others. Only in doing so can we achieve true peace and contentment. To overcome the destructive influence of external validation, the Stoic must practice self-reflection. Each day we should examine our actions, our thoughts, and our emotions. Are we acting in accordance with virtue? Are we striving to improve ourselves regardless of how the world views us? By regularly checking our motivations and examining the nature of our actions, we can ensure that we are not seeking external validation, but rather acting for the sake of virtue itself. In doing so, we strengthen our ability to resist the pull of external opinions and anchor our self-worth in what is truly within our control. The Stoic also practices gratitude not for the approval of others, but for the ability to live a virtuous life. The Stoic's gratitude is rooted in the understanding that each moment offers an opportunity to practice wisdom, courage, and self-discipline. The Stoic is grateful for the challenges they face, for the lessons they teach, and for the opportunity to become a better version of themselves. This attitude of gratitude diminishes the need for external validation, for the Stoic knows that the true reward lies not in external praise, but in the cultivation of virtue. In conclusion, the role of external validation in our lives is a powerful force, but one that can either empower or enslave us. When we depend on external approval for our sense of self-worth, we place ourselves at the mercy of others and allow our happiness to be determined by factors beyond our control. The Stoic mindset, however, offers us a different path. It teaches us to find our validation from within, to root our self-worth in our commitment to virtue and our ability to act with integrity, regardless of the opinions of others. By doing so, we free ourselves from the constant need for approval and create a life that is truly our own, one defined not by external recognition, but by the strength of our character and the wisdom of our actions. The practice of self-awareness. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of the Stoic philosophy. To understand our own mind, our emotions, our desires, and our weaknesses, to gain mastery over ourselves. It is only through self-awareness that we can begin to break free from the tyranny of self-doubt and fear. The mind, unchecked, will wander, will inflate or diminish, will spiral into anxiety or arrogance. It is the nature of the mind to create narratives, to interpret the world through the lens of our past experiences, our beliefs, and our desires. But the Stoic teaches us that these narratives are not necessarily the truth. They are often distortions, projections of our internal conflicts and our attachments to outcomes. Self-awareness is not merely the act of observing our thoughts. It is the discipline of turning our attention inward, of examining our judgments, our emotions, and the sources of our inner turmoil. When we practice self-awareness, we are not simply trying to identify what we think or feel, but also why we think or feel it. The Stoic asks, what is the nature of this fear? What is the root of this self-doubt? Where does this anxiety arise from? The answers to these questions can reveal much about our attachments, our false beliefs, and the patterns that govern our reactions. The first step in cultivating self-awareness is to accept that our thoughts and emotions are not fact. Just because we feel something or think something does not mean it is true. The Stoic does not allow themselves to be controlled by their emotions or impulses. Instead, they examine them with a calm and detached mind, understanding that emotions are often fleeting and unreliable. Fear, anxiety, and self-doubt may rise, but they do not define us. They are not who we are. They are temporary disturbances in the mind, and by recognizing this, we can begin to detach from them. Epictetus reminds us we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. This choice begins with self-awareness. When we are aware of our internal states, we can choose how to respond. If we are feeling fear, we can ask ourselves, what am I afraid of? Is this fear grounded in reality, or is it the product of my own exaggerated thoughts? If we are feeling doubt, we can examine the source of that doubt. What makes me question my own ability? Is it based on evidence, or is it rooted in my own insecurities? By questioning our thoughts, we can begin to disarm them, recognizing them as the illusions they are. One of the most powerful tools in developing self-awareness is the practice of journaling. The Stoics, including Marcus Aurelius, used journaling as a way to reflect on their actions, thoughts, and attitudes, and by writing down our experiences, we create an opportunity to observe our inner lives from a distance, allowing us to see patterns that we may not have noticed before. Journaling provides clarity and insight, helping us to identify the sources of our fears and self-doubt. It also allows us to track our progress and growth over time, reinforcing the importance of focusing on our internal development rather than external outcomes. Through journaling and regular self-reflection, we can develop a deep understanding of our triggers, those external events or internal thoughts that cause us to spiral into fear or self-doubt. Perhaps it is the fear of failure that paralyzes us. Perhaps it is the fear of judgment from others that causes us to hesitate. By identifying these triggers, we can begin to anticipate them and prepare ourselves to respond in a more constructive way. Self-awareness allows us to recognize when our emotions are being triggered so that we can pause, reflect, and choose a response rooted in wisdom rather than fear. Self-awareness also involves understanding our desires. The Stoic does not seek to eliminate desire, but rather to understand it. What do we truly desire? Is it something that is within our control, or is it an external outcome that we cannot govern? Often our self-doubt and fear arise from our attachments to things we cannot control: approval, success, recognition. When we are aware of these attachments, we can begin to let go of them, recognizing that our happiness does not depend on things outside of our control. The Stoic's desire is rooted in virtue, the desire to be wise, courageous, just, and temperate. This is the only desire that is truly within our power to achieve, and by focusing on it, we can cultivate a sense of fulfillment that is not dependent on external validation. In addition to understanding our desires, we must also be aware of our habits. Many of our thoughts, actions, and emotional responses are driven by unconscious habits. These habits can be constructive or destructive, but they often operate below the level of our conscious awareness. Self-awareness involves examining our daily routines, our patterns of thinking, and our automatic responses to situations. Do we react with fear when faced with a challenge, or do we approach it with calm and confidence? Do we doubt our abilities in the face of failure, or do we view setbacks as opportunities for growth? By becoming aware of our habits, we can begin to replace the negative ones with positive, virtue-driven habits. A key part of self-awareness is the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of being present, of fully experiencing the current moment without judgment or distraction. When we are mindful, we are able to observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. This is particularly helpful when we are confronted with self-doubt or fear. Rather than becoming overwhelmed by these feelings, we can observe them with detachment, recognizing them as temporary and unimportant. By practicing mindfulness, we can create a space between our thoughts and our actions, allowing us to choose a response that is in alignment with our values rather than our impulses. Another important aspect of self-awareness is recognizing the difference between what is within our control and what is not. The Stoic philosophy teaches us to focus only on what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, our attitudes, and to let go of our attachment to outcomes. Self-doubt and fear often arise from a focus on external circumstances, on things that we cannot influence. When we become aware of this tendency, we can refocus our attention on what is truly within our power, the way we choose to think, act, and respond. By doing so, we diminish the hold that self-doubt and fear have over us, for we no longer place our sense of self-worth in external outcomes. Through the practice of self-awareness, we begin to realize that self-doubt and fear are not immutable parts of our nature. They are simply reactions to our thoughts, beliefs, and attachments. By cultivating awareness, we can detach from these emotions, recognizing them as temporary and unimportant. We can choose how to respond, and in doing so, we regain control over our lives. The Stoic mindset teaches us that we are not defined by our fears or doubts, but by the way we choose to live in accordance with virtue. It is through self-awareness that we can truly begin to master ourselves, to conquer the fears that hold us back, and to live a life of strength, purpose, and inner peace. In conclusion, the practice of self-awareness is essential for overcoming self-doubt and fear. By turning our attention inward and examining our thoughts, emotions, desires, and habits, we gain the insight needed to break free from the cycles of negative thinking that undermine our confidence. Self-awareness allows us to see the truth behind our fears, to understand the root cause of our self-doubt, and to respond with clarity and wisdom. The Stoic teaches us that by becoming aware of our inner lives, we can take control of them, and in doing so we can live a life of true strength, peace, and fulfillment. The power of present action. The Stoic knows that the only time we have is the present moment. Yesterday is gone, and tomorrow is uncertain. The past cannot be changed, and the future is not yet written. All we have, all we can control, is the present moment, the now. This is where our power lies. When we are consumed by self-doubt and fear, we often find ourselves trapped in a cycle of rumination about past failures or anxieties about future challenges. We cannot change the past, and the future has not arrived. Yet, the present moment is our field of action, and it is only through the choices we make now that we can shape the future. The Stoic mindset encourages us to focus on what is within our control, and that control exists solely in the present. We cannot control how others view us, nor can we predict how situations will unfold. We can only control how we respond, and this response happens in the present. Every decision, every action, every thought we have is a product of the present moment. By focusing our energy and attention on the here and now, we free ourselves from the paralysis of self-doubt and the anxiety of fear. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal journal, wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This simple yet profound statement encapsulates the essence of the Stoic approach to life. When we dwell on the past, we open ourselves to regret, shame, or guilt, emotions that only serve to drain our energy and diminish our sense of self-worth. When we fixate on the future, we fall prey to anxiety, worry, and fear, emotions that paralyze us and prevent us from taking action. In both cases, we lose our focus on the present, which is the only moment that truly matters. To overcome self-doubt and fear, we must learn to cultivate a deep appreciation for the present moment. Every task, no matter how small, is an opportunity to practice virtue. Every action, no matter how seemingly insignificant, is a chance to improve ourselves and move closer to our ideal self. The Stoic teaches us that it is not the outcome that defines us, but the quality of the action itself. When we approach life with this mindset, we take ownership of the present moment and stop allowing the past or future to dictate our emotions or decisions.